Well, Alan Eyre was a core member of the US nuclear negotiations team from 2010 to 2015 for the Iran nuclear deal and is currently a distinguished diplomatic fellow with the Middle East Institute and joining us live now from Washington, D.C. So we heard there that the US was very clear on what that plan was, and now this has been confirmed by Israel. What are your thoughts on that, and with the timing as well?
I think the bottom line is that this is not going to meet Israel's objective of lessening or eliminating the nuclear threat. As to whether Iran decides to go back to the negotiating table while it's being bombed, I think the Sunday meeting is unlikely, and it's an open question based on the flow of events as to whether the U.S. can entice them to return. I think from a domestic political perspective, it would be hard for Iran to negotiate while it's still under attack from Israel. So I think that there is a probability that the situation will destabilize, will get worse. It's an open question still whether Iran will withdraw from the Non-Proliferation Treaty and what other actions it will do. There's certainly no question that Israel has far greater capabilities militarily than Iran does. From a tactical level, these strikes seem quite effective, and Iran's military tends to underperform. But yeah, we're entering a destabilizing time, and I hope that, all sides, obviously, as everyone says, exercise caution.
Now, Iran says that to this day, it's the most inspected nuclear program in the world, and compared to other countries, it says that during this time it's been forthcoming with allowing the inspectors into the country. And then since the 2015 nuclear deal, it provided even more verification. It says it's showing willingness. So to some degree now with these Israeli strikes, how likely is that going to change for Iran, and how cooperative it would be moving forward?
I'm not going to talk about Iran saying that it has provided sufficient transparency into its nuclear program is false. As one of your previous guests pointed out, for the first time in almost 20 years, the IAEA Board of Governors found Iran in non-compliance. So one of the causal factors of what's going on now is that there was insufficient transparency into Iran's nuclear power program. After President Trump pulled out of the JCPOA, and especially in the last year or so, Iran has increased its level of enrichment from what's necessary for its civilian nuclear program to around 60%. And there's no justification for that other than just signaling that it needed to re-enter negotiations with the West. So Iran's lack of transparency and lack of cooperation with the IAEA has definitely been a precipitating factor into what's happened. Now, President Trump says the bottom line is Iran cannot have a nuclear weapons program. The question is, can we prevent that with sufficient verification measures and transparency, or, as many argue, do we need to actually get rid of, or at least as Israel is trying to do now, incapacitate Iran's nuclear infrastructure?
And with you being a former negotiator for the JCPOA, tell us more about the reality of how that was and the state of negotiations now moving forward. Because what we've seen now in the last less than 24 hours, that's completely changed the dynamics of things. It's hard to see them going back from that.
Well, as you said, I was part of the negotiating team for 5 years, 2010 to 2015. You can divide that into two parts. The first part, when Ahmadinejad was president, it was much like it is now, indirect talks held infrequently at the level of almost platitudes. So there was no progress. Once President Rouhani was elected president in Iran, and there was a meeting at the UNGA and Obama and President Rouhani talked, then there was real will on both sides to reach an agreement. Iran wanted sanctions lifted, and we wanted to prevent the nuclear threat coming out of Iran. So starting at I think it was the 2013 UNGA up until 2015, we met far more frequently. We met with an experts team. We stayed in one place for days, if not weeks on end, talking directly with the Iranians, along with the Europeans, multilateral talks, and we eventually reached a deal. What's happening now, the likelihood of the type of concentrated, serious negotiations over a draft text that will result in an agreement that satisfies both sides, I think is far, far harder due to this Israeli attack on Iran.
Now, the purpose of these attacks, Israel says, is completely, in the words of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, to decapitate Iran's nuclear program. But also, do you think that's will have been achieved? Because even if it is able to strike all of these sites and munitions and all of that, the knowledge is still there. And Iran has said time and time again that as long as the knowledge is there, it can go back to rebuilding these.
Exactly right, Sarah. No, I mean, the dreadful has already happened if you're worried about Iranian proliferation, which is Iran has learned to enrich. So that is in the minds of the collective brain trust in Iran's nuclear program, and Israel can't get rid of that. What Israel can do is destroy the infrastructure, but once it starts doing that, you know, they're going to have to, it's like mowing the lawn. You can't just do it once. If Israel does these attacks and weakens and vitiates and destroys much of Iran's nuclear infrastructure, though I will point out they're leaving certain installations untouched for now, Iran can commit to rebuilding, which would necessitate a subsequent Israeli attack to prevent whatever Iran is rebuilding. But Iran obviously can build deeper with more fortifications. So it's a very unhealthy escalatory spiral where, because of attacks on Iran perhaps, and many are saying this, might think it more desirable to seek a nuclear weapon. And don't forget, all intelligence showed that even though Iran had 60% enrichment now, they were not actively seeking a nuclear weapon. They were just seeking to maintain their ability to have their capability to surge toward a nuclear weapon. So with this attack, it commits itself to future attacks, possibly.
OK, thank you very much, Mr. Alan Eyre, for your thoughts there. A core member of the US nuclear negotiating team from 2010 to 2015 for the Iran nuclear deal, and also a distinguished diplomatic fellow with the Middle East Institute.
Thank you.